You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network. Hey there, so sorry for the interruption. This is Alan from the Broadway Podcast Network, and I'm here right now to tell you about BetterHelp.com. It's a safe, private, and confidential online environment that can match you with your own licensed therapist that you can start communicating with in under 24 hours. You can schedule weekly video or phone sessions, and there's no sitting in any annoying waiting room, which of course is especially necessary now in this time of social distancing. I want to point out that it is less expensive than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available to those who qualify. They can help with so many things, ranging from depression and grief to anger, self-esteem, LGBT matters, or even just sleeping. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they're actually recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. If you've ever been on the fence about counseling or therapy, now is the time to start. As a listener of this podcast on the Broadway Podcast Network, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/BPN. Join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/BPN.
Hi, I'm Emilio. I'm a program manager at Google. Right now, lots of people are looking for ways to learn new job skills. That's why we created Google Career Certificates, an online training program for fast-growing fields like IT support, project management, data analytics, user experience design, and more. You don't need any prior experience, and you can be job ready in about 6 months. So put your skills to work. Go to grow.google/certificates.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to Conversations from Away. I'm your host, Aaron Michael Ray, and we are super excited to continue our BIPOC Behind the Curtain series for this episode. So in our last episode of this series, we talked about wardrobe and costumes and really got into detail about just what that department is and what the representation also looks like for BIPOC folks in the styling and wardrobe. And so for this time, we are going to get into music. And I brought 3 people that I think are pretty okay at what they do. So I'm really excited to have them all here. Zane saying, I don't know. So I am going to introduce our guest, our first one, as our Come From Away representative. Is one of my very, very dear friends, Cameron Monker. Cameron is our music director on the Come From Away tour, and his Broadway credits include Mean Girls, Finding Neverland, Tuck Everlasting, and he also did the Finding Neverland and Jersey Boys tours. Welcome, Cam.
Hi.
And we also have 2 really special guests who I'm so excited to just pick their brains and get to know. Our first one is Alvin Huff Jr., who is currently the Associate Music Director on Tina, the Tina Turner musical. Also, Broadway credits include Once on This Island, The Color Purple, Motown, and Scandalous. Alvin, I'm so excited that you are here as well, so welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
And last but not least, we have Zane Mark here, who was one of the co-writers for Bringin' the Noise, Bringin' the Funk, and his Broadway credits include Holler If You Can Hear Me, Motown, The Cher Show, Pippin, and quite a lot more. There's such a great list of credits. So, Zane, I'm really excited that you are here as well. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for the invite.
Of course. So, as I said before, we're getting into BIPOC Behind the Curtain for music. And so I think I just honestly want to start by asking all 3 of you, did you go to school to be musicians for theater? And if you didn't, when was that shift to wanting to work on Broadway? What about you, Cam?
I actually started out as a performer. So I played piano my whole life, and I'm originally from Canada. And so I went to school for performing at Sheridan College for music theater, and ended up playing more classes as an accompanist than I did actually performing in any of the shows, and fell in love with it. And decided to make the shift. So I transferred, and I knew that if I wanted to be a musician, I wanted to be in New York. And so I decided to go to an American school to help with immigration stuff. And so I went to Berkeley with the one and only Aaron Michael Ray. And yeah, got my degree at Berkeley and then graduated and moved to New York, and the rest is history. But yeah, there was definitely a shift for me.
Okay, okay. Yes, that is quite the fun fact of the day. Is Cam and I go way back to the college days of Berklee College of Music. Shout out to our alma mater. What about you, Zane?
I didn't really have any piano lessons when I grew up. My grandmother taught us a little piano when we were young. I did go to music and art high school in New York, and they didn't really have any piano class, as it were. The piano that they taught was for vocalists, so that they had some basic piano theory. So my piano playing is really applied theory. But eventually I, got my Hanon books out just so that I could play what I heard. My father was a musician, so that was a major influence in my life. He was a woodwind player, so my lazy ass, when I went to music and art, because they didn't teach piano, I said, what is the smallest and lightest instrument I can, carry? So I became pretty good on the flute because I was lazy, and there you go.
Okay. Well, I mean, listen, if that's also what brought you to here, then I think the flute got you somewhere pretty far.
Well, my father was, like I said, he was a musician in the second half of his life. Say 75% of his jobs were in theater. So I would hang around, and that was my introduction actually to theater, was hanging around backstage with my father. And, hey kid, copy this. I was a copyist when I first got involved. So I copied music for a lot of shows, and that was my introduction into arranging as well.
Oh, okay. And you also have, speaking of which, because you have done a lot of dance arranging, and I think I know what that means to be a dance arranger, but I think it would be best for you to explain it. So could you just give us a little info about what it means to be a dance arranger for Broadway shows?
Yeah, so first of all, don't feel bad about that, because my wife, who's also a performer, still I don't think is 100% sure what I do. But the simplest explanation would be anytime there is music, there's dancing and there's music and no singing, 95% of the time in the show, I create that music. So sometimes that might be just taking a verse with the song the way it exists and just creating, letting the music be more supportive of the dance. It might be creating something completely different that doesn't exist at all and tells a different story in there. But 95% of the time when there's no music for an extended, amount of time, I create that music or edit that music or arrange that music, however you want to.
Okay. Okay. I mean, listen, the more you know. I'm glad that you broke that down because I had truly no idea.
You're not alone.
So, Alvin, your story is very interesting because you did not go to school for theater or for music. So what was your training and upbringing musically like?
Great question. I'm from Washington, D.C. originally, and I was 5, and it was Halloween. I remember that because it was a big deal to go trick-or-treating. And this was the first day of school that no one could come pick me up. Everyone had a doctor's appointment, beauty salon, whatever. Everybody was busy. Like, Alvin, just go to the after-school room for an hour. We'll come get you. That teacher told my mom when she came to get me, you see that piano over there? Alvin wasn't banging on it like the other kids. He seemed like he was trying to do something. Get him some lessons, see what happens. Total shot in the dark. No one in my immediate family has any training. I found this great private teacher when I was 5, and she told me when I was 13, I started off classically. She essentially said, hey kid, you're starting to get good at this. If you ever want to make money, you're not going to make money if you can only play Bach. So she knew what she did. She knew what she knew, and she knew what she didn't know. She's like, well, I can teach you Bach, but I can't teach you anything else. But I know people. She says, you are going to play your church service, and this is going to happen. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I'm forcing them to let you play in church. A place where, everyone loved me, everyone knew me. I've been going to that church for years, grew up in that church. And there's when I remember that It was like first Sunday in July when I was 13. And I remember the exact moment. I locked eyes with the organist on the first song, and he pointed up, and I had no idea what that meant. And of course, that meant he went up a half step, and I crashed and burned. It was awful. But because my teacher put me in a place where I was loved and could be nurtured, that's where I learned how to sight transpose. That's where I learned how to follow soloists. That's where I learned how to, follow a choir director, all those things that Bach can't teach you.
Right.
And she also took me to a summer camp, and I was introduced to theater. My first show was Tommy. I knew nothing about The Who, nothing about rock music. So that was like an eye-opening moment for me. So that all happened when I was 13. So I didn't go to school for music. My other passion is meteorology, and I won't bore your listeners here with that, but I have a bachelor's from Harvard in Earth and Planetary Sciences, and I got my master's from Georgia Tech in meteorology. I never got to apply it on TV or anything, but I know how inexact the science is and how much we're all guessing, but that's for another day. But I had friends from DC move up to New York, and one of them called me and said, "Hey, Alvin, I think you're good enough to play piano in New York." And I thought he was insane. And he said, if that weather thing doesn't work out, give me a call. I know some people. So when I graduated in the fall of 2008, right when the economy crashed, I didn't have a job, couldn't find anything. So I'm like, hey, let's go to New York. Let's make this happen. See what works. And I've been here now 12 years, and luckily have found a way to make it work.
Wow. I have to say that I really love that one of your first shows was the Who's Tommy, because that was I think that was the first show I ever got paid to do at this, community theater. And Cam even came to see me in this production.
I did.
So that really just has a special place in my heart as well.
Pinball wizard, man, I tell you.
Yes. Awesome. So, okay, let's get into it. So I feel like in my career so far, something I realized I honestly I couldn't believe myself when I found this out, and I had to actually go through each and every show that I have done to make sure that this is true. But in my career so far, in shows that I have gotten paid to do as an actor, I have yet to have a Black person or even a person of color on the music team. And a part of me can't really believe, it's really hard for me to believe that, but at the same time, I don't know, maybe it isn't. And so something I want to ask y'all is it because it's actually hard to find someone of color to fulfill these jobs, or are they not trying hard enough to search for BIPOC representation in these shows?
I can start there. I think theater is, I think every genre of music has its own, unique, descriptors, ways to go about it, ways to excel in it. And I think the overarching issue is that there are plenty of talented people who are of color, who are Black, men, women, doesn't matter. But they don't know that they can apply their skills to theater with the right guidance. They may be a fantastic choir director at a church. They may know how to work the jazz club scene. They may, I don't know, pick a place. They may be in improv. They may be at the amusement park. And they're great where they are. And all they need is just to be shown how what they know can be applied to theater, knowing, what half hour means, and what, all the language that we have. And I think that's part of the problem, finding those people and letting them know, hey, if you are interested in doing something else, there's a regional theater down the road, or there's, someone's doing a community theater thing over here. I think it's just a matter of exposure and making people aware that what they already know can just be, just add a little extra, what they know is a solid foundation, just sprinkle a little theater language in there, and you can come and do this too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I think something we've definitely talked about a lot is, just especially with casting, right? whenever someone's looking specifically for someone of a certain type or certain cultural background, and then maybe they don't find it, and it's just kind of like, well, whoever showed up, is kind of what we went with. But a lot of the time they also just aren't looking hard enough. And so I'm always just curious, how much that overlaps in other parts within our industry, but in different departments. So yeah, and so I feel like that's honestly why I wanted to ask y'all, if it's that same kind of thing, because I feel like there could always be more representation. And we're gonna get into Muse, the organization that Alvin and Zane are in, very shortly, but which I feel like we'll get into that. But I am curious just to know, what that is like for y'all. Does there tend to be more diversity in projects you work on for shows that have a culturally specific story? Because I think when I'm thinking about shows, like if there's a 42nd Street, or if there's a Little Shop, or those kinds of shows, like, is there still the same kind of effort that you would see when doing like The Color Purple or Motown, for seeking diversity, or no? Zane, what do you think?
So just to dovetail back on what Alvin was saying, I'm safely going to say I'm the oldest guy in the room now. And so I've been at it for a minute. And back in the day, there was an issue with hiring musicians of color, male or female. And subsequently, you don't have a lot of us now. And there were all sorts of reasons why that didn't happen. So things are starting to change. But I think the bigger problem, quote unquote, and this is my own little phrase now, is if you're going to be, quote unquote, stuck in a pit with a group of musicians, you're going to try to make that as comfortable as possible. And this is not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but you're going to hire your friends, the people that you know who they are. And if all of your friends are white, or all of your friends are male, or all of your friends are fill in the blank, that's who you're going to put with you. So it's not necessarily a racist thing or a sexist thing. It's just you're hiring your friends. So what I say over and over is, we need to get some new friends. And that's really the baby version of it. There are a whole bunch of other things going on as to why more people of color are not, on a lot more Broadway shows. I'm doing Mrs. Doubtfire right now. I am the only person of color on the entire creative team. I think there's a woman in, I think Cookie's doing makeup, but it's me. Now, I hasten to add, I don't think it's a racist thing. I'm working with Ethan Pop. I love him. He is hiring his friends, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all, but we need some more friends. And that, I think, is the baby version and the quickest answer, not being politically correct. That's just the facts. As far as the last question you posed, that's another issue for musicians of color. We will get the Motowns, we will get the Once on This Islands, but we can do My Fair Lady and Oklahoma. We can do those shows also. But the people in position to hire us, I guess, assume or think or whatever it is that we're better equipped to do that. The soul shows, the groove shows, the whatever it is show, as opposed to the other shows. So the goal is not to be, a great Black musician. The goal is just to be a great musician. Not a great female, not a male, just a great musician that's always on call. I want this person that can do anything. So I can do a funky show, I can do a legit show, all Gershwin tunes, whatever you want me to do, I can do it. And that should be our goal collectively. And as well as allowing everybody to have a pipeline to the chair. And that's, I think, where the breakdown is, along with, we need some new friends.
This is so interesting for me because I feel I'm in the infancy of my career. So I've never been in a place to hire anyone. So that's, I think, the most important thing is people in my position or below me being a part of this conversation and understanding where we've come from. Because I love that quote, we need some new friends. Because you're absolutely right. Of course you hire your friends. That's how it works. But just knowing this as I move forward into positions of power where I will be hiring people and I will be crossing those boundaries is just, it's fascinating to me to hear you guys talk.
Yeah. And I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alvin.
I just continuing the line of thought. I think it's, I got 2 kids. I got a 4-year-old son, 2-year-old daughter. One of the books that we got, it's funny as a parent to like relearn things or be reminded of things through your kids and their books and their interactions. And there's an amazing book that Sonia Sotomayor wrote, and it's called Just Ask. It's like, does this kid have autism or a peanut allergy, all these things? And I'm trying to think about that, how we could apply. Just ask. You look at me, you think I can only play Motown, but I've been playing classically since I was 5. Just ask me, hey, do you play classically? Do you play rock? Can you show me, can you play a 16-bar cut from My Fair Lady? Whatever. I think if people just were more comfortable with approaching folks and saying, tell me what you can do, show me what you can do, give me the list of your, capabilities, and then say, where can I put you? Where can I hire you? I think people get put in a box, and where the box they're put in is not necessarily all encompassing of what they can do. People just want to show what they can. If you're in this business, you're in it because you want to be creative and you want to share your creation, your art with you want to collaborate with other folks and then share with an audience, share with, people who are going to hear it. And I feel you got to know what everybody can bring to the table so that you get the best, product at the end.
Yeah, I 100% co-sign on all of that. And I just think, because I think like we've, especially, as Black people, again, like, even with you saying, they look at you and they say, okay, then we got you on the Motowns and the Color Purple or whatever. But it's like, you also don't know what else I could do. You don't know that I actually, like, I too vocally was classically trained at first. And before I even started getting into jazz, which is primarily, where kind of my voice wants to go. But at the same time, I've also done the My Fair Ladies. I've done like Sweeney Todd, like all these other kind of shows on my resume that show that like, yeah, I can actually do this kind of style musically for what you're looking for. So don't just put me in that box, because I think in this industry, we're all trying. So I think the trap is, once you find that box, once you find your brand or whatever that is, you work from that. But at the same time, it can't be super binding to that. And Zane, I really love that you said, it's time to get new friends, because we have absolutely talked about that on this podcast of saying, if you can't find people of color or certain cultural or queer or gender backgrounds or whatever that is for a certain role or a certain project or certain, position, then that means you need to get new friends. And, it's not even just me trying to, be shady or whatever, that's what it is. And that's what presents itself.
Pendulum swings both ways, and we have to be careful. And so I'm very cautious about trying to ask anybody to do anything that I'm not prepared to do myself. And so what happens is a friend of mine asked me about doing blind auditions. So we're just going to get in the theater and everyone's going to sing or play or whatever it is behind a curtain. And we're going to bring all of the Black musicians in and they're going to turn it out, but they'll be auditioning with the white musicians also. So what happens if we pull the curtain back and it's all white guys that made the cut and not Black guys? What happens when you go to say, all right, I want to take a chance and I want to hire some non-white male musicians? And I got nothing against white male musicians. But what happens? I want to hire something that fits in that other box. Am I willing to risk this multi-million-dollar Broadway show on this person that is not tried and true? No. Am I willing to put this person in the pit who's never been here before, who might be a complete butthead and just jack up the whole vibe of the band? No. And so it's not just, you're in there because you're Black. No, the goal is to be in there because you're a great oboe player or whatever the it is. The other thing with the stereotypes is, there's some Black people that can't play gospel music. They just clueless. You ask them to play a blues, it's not going to happen. And there's some white guys that'll turn that out. You know what I'm saying? So the stereotype thing is going to be bad across the board, period. I go back to what Alvin said. We need to ask. We need to ask. But I'm sure Cam will tell you in a heartbeat, I'm on the road with these guys. One guy acting the butthead is going to jack up everything. And the whole show now is, so, and that's white, Black, green, straight, gay. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
A butthead's a butthead.
It takes one person.
Only one. And the whole apple basket is jacked up. So it's not as simple as burn it all down to the ground, just hire Black people, start from scratch. It's not that simple. And I think as probably the most impatient person in the world, I have had to, reset and go, okay, I need to set some goals. 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. And so in some of the other projects that I'm working in, I have to say, this is what it is now. Here are the numbers. I hope the numbers improve in 6 months, 1 year, 3, whatever. And let's just take stock on that time period. Because I would love, if you're a Black female conductor right now, you're the golden unicorn. Everybody wants you. And honestly, as far as people that I could recommend for the job, as head person in charge of the music department, I only know about 5. And each one of them have 600 jobs already because they are the golden unicorn. Right. So what do? We get some new friends and we school them, we mentor them, we train them. But that takes time and energy. But now that's just my responsibility now. And that's what I have to step up and do. But I say all of that to say, I don't think there's a quick Band-Aid that we can just throw on this problem. And this is not just with musicians. This is with actors. This is with producers. The actual show that you're actually working on, it just runs the gamut. And for us, anyone to think it's a simple thing that we're going to correct overnight is foolish. And but it's going to take a lot of work. And I think all of us on the same path with the same goal, or at least a similar goal, trying to get some new friends, trying to do a more collective hold hands and sing Kumbaya, and hopefully we can get it all together, we got a better chance.
Okay. Well, I love everything you just said. And I feel like that's going to be a perfect segue going into asking you about Muse. So before we do that, let's take a quick break.
There are 8 million people in New York City, and 2 of them are meeting for the first time tonight. What could possibly go wrong? That's the story of First Date, the virtual Broadway musical starring American Idol's Ace Young and Diana DeGarmo, with an irresistible score and filled with those cringe-worthy yet priceless moments that might feel a little all too familiar. First Date lets us know it's all part of the process of finding the perfect partner. Streaming exclusively on Stellar July 23rd through the 25th. Visit stellar.com for tickets.
All right, welcome back. So Alvin and Zane, I'm really, really excited to ask y'all about this amazing, amazing organization called Muse, which stands for Musicians United for Social Equity. Is that right?
Yep.
Right. Yes.
That's right.
Okay. I always try to make sure, if I'm going to plug the organization, I got to say it right. So for me, you two are part of the founding members of Muse. So what inspired you to help create this organization?
Well, I mean,
what is Muse? I guess I should have said that too.
fair enough. I'm going to start with just, George Floyd should still be alive. I think anyone with, a brain can agree with that. But I think a way that the world is honoring him and his family is by actually taking a step back and thinking about, the differences between right and wrong and how something like equity could be achieved. We formed shortly after that horrific incident, and it, being in the middle of a pandemic kind of allowed us all to fully invest into thinking about what we can do as, our own little microcosm of the world, to say, what can musicians, for professional level theater, what can we do to make our world look a little bit more like, New York, more like the United States, to make it more, more equitable. We're happy with where we are after a year, but we want more. We're in it for the long haul. We're here to develop that pipeline that Zane was talking about, because all the people who are our founding members, we're known in the industry. People have called us a lot. What we want to do is to say that when all of us are old and gray, what have we left behind? What access have we given to other people to, not have that question be raised of, well, I couldn't find anybody. Where are the, fill in the blanks? Where are the Latinx? Where are the, we all know the list. Where are those people of color who, tend to get the short end of the stick? And we hope to, have rendered that question obsolete, so that people, know, can come to our directory and find high quality folks. But we need time to mentor, to teach, to build that pipeline, to get people up to snuff. It's an honor to be part of Muse. Muse, it personally gave me something to look forward to, gave me something to do, gave me, a reason to, like wake up, kind of, during the worst of the pandemic. My wife is an ICU doctor, and the things that she has seen and she knows that, I only know slivers of, is enough to, really make you think about what the world has gone through this past year. And things were quite grim, but like I said, Muse is something that, kind of gave me hope, so looking to the future, like what can, I believe there are 19 founding members. What can the 19 of us do to inspire, other people down the road, and to grow our industry so it looks, more like what America looks like.
Yeah, I just have to start by saying, on the website, which is museonline.org, by the way, I gotta plug it. When I was looking on this website, I was almost getting emotional, like, just because I feel like when we talked a lot on this podcast just about, like, what can we do? What are the steps? How do we do this? And I just feel like this is the first organization that has come up through COVID, or something that I have seen within our industry, that I said, like, this is the work. This is what is actually about to change so many things. And I just am so excited for the potential and the future of Muse, because just going through, I went through just a directory to see, like, do I know anybody on here? Like, maybe I do. And I know a lot of people on there, and there are people that I've worked on small projects or full shows, and it's so amazing to see.
And just to, like, show the reach of it, I've been spending the pandemic in Alabama, and have gotten into playing high school shows in Alabama, because that's what we do. I have a very strong high school career now in Alabama. And there is a guy that I've become friends with who lives down here, who has applied to some of your piano program. Like in Alabama, like Zane was talking about, those people doing regional and community theater and getting them to know that there's a possibility. He already knows about Muse, he's in the directory, and he's applying for these programs and getting the mentorship that you all are talking about. And that just blew, to know that here, that's happening, and the reach of Muse already in 1 year blew my mind.
And if I could just fill in a couple more blanks, when Alan was speaking, originally, for those of you that don't know, there's a job called the music assistant. And this person basically runs around behind the musical supervisor, the musical director, and does basically everything and anything. It could be from light arranging to getting coffee. They just do everything, and they're not recognized by the local unions. So normally the producer is the one that gives them a little nickel or two, and often the musical supervisor, director that's working for them have to give them a little extra money to make it make sense, because especially in New York, you can't do nothing for $400 or $500 a week before taxes. You know, it's like, you're kidding me. So in the very beginning, that was one of the major problems or things that we were trying to address. Let's get these people on salary, get them recognized, because that job usually leads to the rehearsal pianist, and then they become an assistant in the show, and then become the assistant director, conductor, the musical director, and so on. So that's the direct pipeline for them to do stuff. So that was like a major thing that we were trying to do. And then we could also have piano camp, and we could do this and the mentoring programs and blah, 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 blah. Then we went out and reached out to everybody that we knew that were musical directors on Broadway now. And there's another group, Georgia Stitt's group, Maestra, which is primarily women, all colors, all things. You just have to be identified as a woman, and then in you go. And their website is a monster. So anybody listening, maestra.com, check them out. And if you're not a member and you're a musician, sign up immediately. But their website, I was just blown away. I was like, well, we should kind of copy their stuff, because it's really good. And we primarily did, and we got their web designers. And so that's what brought us over. And then we started to recognize a whole bunch of other problems that we needed to address, and trying to figure out how to address it. So it sounds, someone just listens like, oh, you guys have a great, thing. All of the Black people in the entire world are in there, and we can just go in there and populate. No. And so we have more work to do. You would think that any Black established musician in New York would be in the directory. They're not. Why? Another podcast, another day, another time. So our goal is to get everybody in there. What we're finding, though, is there's a lot of younger musicians, some that don't have a lot of credits, some that are still in school, that, as Alvin mentioned, didn't realize that there might be an avenue for them in musical theater. And, so if you're an arranger, you can arrange for musical theater, which is, a thing by itself, but you can arrange for anything. It's just, musical theater is a monster by itself. But if you're a copyist, if you're an arranger, and be it vocal, dance, the whole orchestra, whatever it is. And our goal is to try to address each and every one of those guys. Then you have theaters across the country. And I could bore you with some of the craziness that's going on around there, but I give you one. There are certain locals that and I'm sure Cam could probably tell you about this, that if you're the oldest member, not in age, but in just when you join the union, the local, if you're the oldest member, just seniority, you get right of first refusal when a show comes through. So if you're 6,000 years old and you can't play that high C anymore on your trumpet, the gig has to be offered to you first. So a musician getting out of school that lives in that town has to wait for that guy to die to be offered a chair. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. And we can't do anything about that. We have, so, and then, going around, we started in Southern California and just asking theaters to get their numbers. And everyone will admit right off the bat, our numbers don't look good as far as who they're hiring. And so acknowledging that there is a problem and that you're part of it is step one. And so now we're going to, how do we move forward? But Muse doesn't want to be the one to come in, put on a Superman cape and save the day. We want to assist you in taking care of your problem as opposed to us doing the work. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. So thank you for pumping us up, but we're not where we need to be yet. We're hoping to grow. And we're going to do that with a larger membership, a lot of people signing up and getting on. But it's work for everybody on all sorts of levels, white, Black, and otherwise.
Right. Oh, I gotta say to you, that's a perfect softball. I think one of the things that makes Muse special and unique is that it's not just a bunch of Black people pushing for change. Nothing against those organizations who are, but we are a collection of white and Black MDs who we recognize the issues that are in front of us, and we're not trying to blow things up. I mean, there is a system, there are unions, there are things in place, but how can we work within what, you know, the foundation, the system that we already have? What can we do to tweak things, to modify things, to change clauses in a CBA, to figure out, you know, how can we take what we have and just modify it to bring other people into the fold? And I think that that's something that makes us special. And the fact that we realize we need allies, we need people on, you know, all fronts, of all colors, of all genders, everything to help us too, because we can't do this, as, you know, people of color, we can't do it by ourselves. We need the help.
Yeah, and that was also something I noticed right away just going on the website, was that all the founding members, it's actually it's so diverse. All of the founding members of this organization, and they all have, a lot of them have been people I've auditioned for or have, you know, I've worked with in some kind of way. And so that was also really inspiring too, to see, because, you know, like, there is that, I'm glad that you brought up, you know, that it's not just Black people kind of like leading the change and this is what it is, because, you know, it's more than just that. And it also, you know, unfortunately, whenever that is the case in some situations, like of just us leading, you know, this new change, it's not always as well received, because there has to be some sort of, you know, white face attached to it or something like that. And so I think it's really great to see that there's a lot of different people that are all behind this and all helping moving this forward, because I just believe in this organization so much, and I'm really excited to see where it goes, that I just love all of that.
We thank you for that. And just if I could add, I think another mindset that I'm running into a lot is we're waiting for them to fix the way they think and the way they act and to do things differently. And I'm saying, why can't we do it ourselves? In other words, where is the new Negro Ensemble Company? So I'm waiting for fill in the quote unquote traditional white producer to do the new show. Why are we waiting for them? Why does Broadway have to be the do-all, end-all, be-all for everything? You know, where is the new, I don't know, the Black Public Theater? I mean, where are these other places? You know, during this pandemic, how many Zoom presentations have you seen? You know, so there's so many other things that we can do for us that I don't know if we've really scratched that too hard, you know, and we need to dig deeper, and as opposed to handout, gimme, gimme, gimme. And there's nothing wrong with that per se, but I think we need to say, I can write music by myself. I can play this. You know how to sing. You know how to act. Let's do it. And I think that waiting on somebody to give me is not good. And I'm saying on the somebody as in theater producers, unions, just run the gamut of whatever is slowing down. Do you really have to do it that way, or can you go around it and get the same thing? And I'm not saying screw the unions. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that, well, I'll say this and then I'll leave it. How many people of color do you know in Local 1? You're a union member on Broadway. How many brothers or sisters have you seen pulling cable, running electrics, doing the boards, even load in and load out? And so how do we change that? How do we change that? And if you think it's going to happen overnight, it is not. But how do we change that? So I think half of the problem, or half of the solution, put it that way, is identifying that this is a problem and we're calling it a problem. But we had discussions with contractors. Contractors are the men that used to be solely in charge of putting butts in the chairs in the pits. And so now a lot of people have more, you know, power involved, but they were the cats. And one guy, very, good friend, very cool. And he asked me, what do you want? I said, well, I'd like to look over opening night over the rail into the pit and not see 100% white men in the pit. I'd like it to be a little bit more diverse. And he said, okay, how many do you want? I didn't have an answer. There's only 7 guys in the pit. We're going to say 10%, so I guess I got to get a biracial guy in there. What do we do? How do we do this? And so there is no like one set answer for anything, and then add to that, if you have, I'm just putting all the dirty laundry out there.
That's why I came.
I'm going to stop right now. I'm going to take a pause and let y'all keep going.
But I mean, I receive all of that. I think that's something we've all thought about at some point, and especially, for y'all being musicians in theater, like this is absolutely something that you're going to come across. And so if this is something that like we're finally having this conversation about, then like, let's have it,
Well, it's also another thing about like, where are these people and whose responsibility is it to find the talent? And I think we at Muse are saying, well, we can't wait for XYZ person who's been doing it for 40 years to go out and find the talent, because maybe they don't want to, maybe they feel it isn't their responsibility, maybe they're it's another case of like waiting for someone else or some other entity to have this change of heart that may or may not come, and you're just sitting there waiting, and you could say, well, no, how about we do something, find a way to have a way to hold an audition that isn't called an audition. How do we, because I think that's part of the problem. I feel a sensible way to go about this is to say, people just want to be seen or heard. If you're playing an instrument, people just want to be heard. And if you never have a chance to be heard, how do you move up the ranks? And the thing is, even if you want to hire your friend for X show, if there's a way you could have whoever come in, why a big pool of people to come play, you can say, oh my gosh, this is this person. I've never seen him, never heard her, but that's a talented person. And even if I don't hire them for this show, I now know that they exist. And in 5 years, when something comes up, here it is. I think as MDs, we do that all the time. When we audition actors and you have a plan and you say, well, this is, what I want it to look like. And you have your vision, but then someone comes in and does a kick-ass audition and you're just like, screw your vision. You're like, I'm good. Look at me. You could say, okay, maybe this person doesn't fit for this show, but that talent is too good to overlook. I will find something for you in my next show, or I will, what's the word I'm looking for? I will defer. I will pass you on to a colleague and say, hey, this person is good. You should use him, her. That's a great trombone player. I don't care what you're doing. Find something for them in the next 2 years. That give them something because they're good. I think conversation, so key. I think everybody, Cam's doing a tour, I'm doing a show, Zane's doing it, and everybody's got their own little, island, their own little thing that they're sitting on it, and you have your own little house rules, your own little things. And I feel if we as a community just open up and talk about things and say, what is your situation? How is it similar to mine? How is it different? And I think a more open book just in the industry to see where people stand and say, I'm looking for, I don't think no one's trying to poach anybody. It's like, hey, I need an XYZ. So-and-so I know is leaving the tour and I need to fill this spot. Hey, do you know any French horn players out there that might fit? And it's like, actually, I do. I saw this person audition, 6 months ago. Call her up. I don't know. There's a way for us to do more, to be more collaborative. Even though we work in a collaborative environment, I feel we can still do more to talk amongst each other.
I also think it's important to point out kind of what Alvin's touching on is that for non-musicians who don't know, we're technically not allowed to audition musicians. So getting people heard is a huge problem especially when, as Zane said, you're going to trust this multi-million-dollar show to someone that you can't ask to audition for you, you can't have in the room. Again, it goes back to you're going to go with the tried and true and people you know, and having that dialogue and that openness to hear people is a huge step in just knowing what's out there and being able to trust what's out there.
And to Cam's point, we've been speaking with our union 802 and contractors on that audition. When I mentioned this to my wife, an actress, like, musicians don't audition? What a dumb crap is that? So like, so here's the musician's credo. As musicians on Broadway, we're expected to get a job without auditioning. So if you want to, I'm going to get a business gig at IBM. I want the job. I don't want you to interview me. Once I get the job, I have the job for life. You can't fire me. I mean, it's just like, I have to like get on stage in the middle of the show, punch somebody and urinate into the pit. I mean, it has to be bad to get fired, And who does that? And so let me add one more monkey wrench into it. And it sounds very gloomy, but I think the number we got was like 7,000 musicians in New York that are in the union, but maybe only 1,000 of them are actually making enough money or working enough to call themselves, I am a musician and I can pay my rent and feed my family and blah, 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 blah. There's only so many theaters in New York and there's so many chairs. And so now of those 1,000 people or 7,000 people in that pool, Muse or whoever it is wants to put more people in the pool,